Welcome back, everybody. So I have the great pleasure this morning of introducing Ron Campbell. Ron has been working at the Orange County Register since 1987. Yesterday at dinner, the newspaper was described to me as risk-taking and innovative. And Ron has been there for 20 years and has been himself an innovator at the newspaper by starting the computer-assisted reporting section or practice, we could say. Ron has been an investigative journalist for quite a while. Among interesting stories that he's done was about the people who profit from selling human cadavers and the role of immigrant in California's economy. He likes crunching numbers, he was telling me. He loves the census and loves to do all sorts of funny stuff with it, and we're going to see it almost as much as he likes backpacking and mountaineering. So, Ron, we're looking forward to hear about how we can tame that data and build great narratives.
Thanks. Good morning. We're all journalists here, and I think that there's one thing that we like above all, which is a good story, and one thing that most of us hate, which is numbers. So I'm going to start by easing into the numbers with a little bit of history. About 50 years ago, shortly after his death, the heirs to President Kennedy published a book that he had written called A Nation of Immigrants. And it was a call. Okay. Yeah.
Much better, thank you.
And with any luck, I can actually be heard. Go for it.
This needs the woman's touch, right?
Right. Anyway, they published a book by the late president called A Nation of Immigrants. It was a call to reform the 1924 Immigration Act, a very restrictive law that was the product of generations of restrictive immigration practices. If you think that anti-immigration controversies are something new, you are mistaken. There had been animus against immigrants dating back well over 100 years. Here in Boston, in the Boston area, Irish immigrants were not exactly welcomed with open arms back in the 1840s or 1850s or 1860s until, of course, they outnumbered the English establishment and took over the place. In my native city of San Francisco, the Chinese were so reviled that it led to the first, genuinely the first, anti-immigration law ever passed by the United States Congress, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1885. And this all came to a head with the 1924 Act. And then finally, in 1965, we got the Immigration Act, which is still the big kahuna of immigration laws. I don't think that Congress knew quite what it was doing when it passed that law. What it was actually doing was a revolution in immigration law, and you'll see in just a moment just how big a change that was. This is the pattern of immigration from 1850, when the Census Bureau started tracking foreign-born residents of the United States, all the way to 2010. And this line represents the percentage of U.S. residents from 1850 to the present. The high point is in 1890, 12, let me double check, 14.8% in 1890, 14.7% in 1910, and we are currently at 13.0% now in 2012, approaching yet again another record. This is the story of immigration to the United States. This is why it has been a controversy again and again. This is why it was a controversy in the 1920s when the 1924 Act was passed. This is why it's a controversy now. Yeah.
Going back for 1 second. Oh wait, no, you're gonna hit it on this one.
Okay, let's see if I can figure out how to do that.
No, I think you're gonna hit it on your next slide. I'm sorry, because one of the things I felt like I had always understood,
Yeah.
and then during this conference made me feel like I don't understand as well, but is that the 1965 Immigration Act opened up. I understand how it shifted quota systems, but what I'm curious about is the impact it had particularly on Mexican and Central American immigration, because these numbers increased, but is it legal immigration or illegal
I'll get to that on the very next slide.
Yes, great.
Now, a lot of you will be hearing from your audience that it's mostly illegal immigration that accounted for that enormous increase that you saw in the previous slide. But in fact, illegal, unauthorized, choose your pick, that was about 3 million people before the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, 10 to 11 million since then. But it's mostly legal immigration. Between the 1924 Act and the 1965 Act, the United States admitted 7.3 million legal permanent residents in that 40-year span. Another 40 years after that, that's why I cut it off at 2006, 28.8 million. That's the difference that the 1965 Act made. You can see just how transformative the 1965 Act was. Again, I have no clue whether the authors of the 1965 Act had any idea what they were doing. I suspect they did not.
In a nutshell, why was immigration dropping so dramatically before that?
Because the 1924 Act was designed to restrict immigration. It was a product of several things. One was the desire to shut the door on undesirables, particularly from Southern Europe, Italians, Greeks, also from Eastern Europe, Jews, Slavs. They're considered, well, at the time you've got to remember that eugenics was very popular. It was considered intellectually respectable. And of course, Asians. The Chinese Exclusion Act remained on the books until 1943. Japanese, of course. In California, Japanese were prohibited from owning land right up, I think, until the 1930s or 1940s. So that was part of it. It was part of the context. Okay, so I've told you, I think, enough of history. What can the census tell you about this population? The answer is an enormous amount. It can tell you the numbers, obviously, but also where they lived, right down to the neighborhood. A tract is an area that in large urban areas can have as few as 4,000 people. The native country, which country they came from, what language they spoke at home, what they do for a living, even how much they earn. Key sources, decennial census. What that means in non-geeky terms is the decadal census. That was through 2000. After 2000, they dropped the long form, which is the one that you filled out that took an hour or so to fill out. And they replaced that with the American Community Survey, which is sent out to about 3 million households a year, beginning in 2005. And then the current population survey, that's the source for unemployment numbers. It is also, however, contains a lot of information about all kinds of population groups. It asks questions, among other things, about whether you are a native or if you're born abroad. There are also other surveys out there that include information about immigrants. A couple of addresses out there. By the way, this presentation is on the website, so you can download it there. Obviously, census.gov, FactFinder, at census.gov. You've got a handout on FactFinder. And let's see, where are we? And now it's time for me to start taking you on a guided tour. So I'm going to go away from this and start showing you some things. And let's see if I can. This is FactFinder. When it first came out, this was widely considered by reporters to be a spawn of Satan. In fact, I gave a class at a NICAR conference. Any of you know what NICAR is? A few of you, National Institute for Computer Assisted Reporting. And I asked the class how many people considered it to be a tool of the devil. Half the class raised their hands.
This is on video too.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen this video.
Yeah. They've made a lot of improvements since then. It's way easier to use than it was back then. I think they probably caught my act then and decided they really need to make some improvements. I've also heard, though, that the head of the Census Bureau went to the American Sociological Convention and talked about FactFinder and was booed. That had to hurt. Anyway, here is the home page, and you see they've got like community facts. They've really improved the home page. They made it a lot easier to look at. And community facts, they obviously want you to try community facts first. So let's go to community facts and try that first. And we will try what the Car Talk boys refer to as our fair city. And you see it automatically picks up on what I'm typing. And, 105,162 people live here. And I'm going to pick up on education, marital status, relationships, fertility. Click on that link. And let's see if I can get this to work. All right. Not very well. I'm doing about as well as David was.
You can't reach that level.
Okay, why isn't this? Oh.
Nobody,
It's the Apple.
Well, I have a Mac at home. Okay, look at this first of all. Native and now foreign-born. There are 28,612 foreign-born residents of Cambridge, plus or minus 1,348. So the foreign-born population of Cambridge is 27.4%, plus or minus 1.3%. So how many minutes did it take us to find out this fact about the city of Cambridge? Under a minute. So you can go back to your city and you can, in under a minute, find out how many immigrants there are in your city. Doesn't matter how big it is, how small it is, that's how long it'll take you to find out how many immigrants there are in your town or city. But you can also find out how many are naturalized or not citizens. And as you see in Cambridge, a large majority are not citizens. And how many entered before 2000 as opposed to after 2000? And where they came from. And in Cambridge, a large majority, or I shouldn't say a large majority, a plurality came from Asia. And this is one I always find interesting. Language spoken at home. The proportion who speak English less than very well. That's a clue, because social services in your community for immigrants really depend on how many people can speak English well. Government services usually assume that people can speak English well. If they can't, you want to put shit like.
That's okay, yeah. Shut it off. Keep going.
Okay.
If it's English less than very well, is that considered linguistically isolated households?
Yeah. Yeah, the question, if you didn't hear it, was if they can speak English less than. Did that turn this off too?
Shouldn't, but
The question was if they cannot speak English, if they speak English less than very well, is that considered linguistically isolated? Answer, yes. So again, this is something you want to keep track of. Now, let's go back.
is there, before you leave this page, is there a way to get that data from any given community alongside like the national averages or the state averages so you can sort
Yes.
of compare?
Yes, there is.
You paid her to ask that question, didn't you?
Actually, no, but
Okay.
I'm cheap. And we'll get to that in a second. Advanced search. You see, in a second. And what we're going to try here is what you basically suggested. And what I like is, let's see. What I'd like here is a state and a metro area. Someone give me a state and a metro area.
Dallas, Texas?
Okay. Now, actually, let me go back.
Yeah.
I'm moving a little too fast. You see on the front side here, on the left side, first I'm going to eliminate Cambridge, Massachusetts. So my selections are empty. You notice here that we've got a little box here that says geographies. I'm going to click on that. And then we've got this whole new menu here called geographies. I'm going to activate the names tab. I'm just going to click Dallas. And no, I don't want Dallas County, Alabama. Do I want Dallas City, Texas, or Dallas County, Texas? You tell me.
City.
And I'm going to hit go. And I'll just pick the first one. And do I want the state of Texas too?
Everybody following? So you just check Dallas? How did you pick Dallas City?
Yeah, that box.
Filled in the box
See where it
and
says
hit go.
geography name, geography results?
And you know it's moved if it goes up to your selection.
Right.
How do you add Texas?
Pardon me?
How do you add?
Well, first I haven't added it yet. Let's see. Okay. I'm having problems moving this mouse. Yeah.
It might just be reversed from what you have happened.
Okay.
I get stupider.
Yeah, let's.
You got it, you're doing it.
Right, we are, everyone is having problems today with the computer.
How far down can you drill with this data? Like, in other words, because it's based on a survey data, Can you only go down to like, a small town, anything?
You can go down, and I'll show you, you can go down to a census tract or a census block.
And it's statistically reliable?
Well, at a block level, you can only go down to like the decennial census, and then you're only dealing with counting people, like,
Right. It's not gonna have all that other rich data that you want.
right.
It's just gonna have the cursory.
Yeah, the question over here, did you all hear her question? How far down can you go? If you are dealing with survey data, there's always a margin of error around the data. And the census won't allow you to go down to below a certain level with survey data. If you are counting, and all you're doing is the once a decade census, you can go down to a block level. And within a census tract of 4,000 people, there may be like 10 or 12 blocks, and you can get down to the number of people in a block, and even the racial counts within the block. But survey data, like the number of foreign born or the median household income, you're not going to get below the census tract, and for that you're going to get a 5-year count, a 5-year average, I should say. So that's one of the limitations. Okay, so I've made selections for Dallas City, Texas, and for the state of Texas.
So did everybody get how to do this?
I didn't was able to get Texas up there.
Well,
Check to make.
yeah, okay, what,
Filters.
yeah, all I did was I selected it through the filters, and this is also covered in the handout.
Yeah.
You want to delete the filter of the city that you have sort of center left,
Right,
so that the only filter left is the state.
right. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go looking for foreign-born people in Dallas and in Texas. So here's what I'm doing. Actually, I'll do this slightly slower. Notice how my hands never leave my wrist. People, origins, foreign-born, and at this point, you'll notice there are 709 tables that match my selection. So what FactFinder is doing, there are tens of thousands of tables out there, but there are only 709 tables that are available for foreign-born for the city of Dallas and for the state of Texas that match these criteria. And
So one would assume that number of 700 is comprised of all the tracts? Is that the smallest unit in Texas?
well, I haven't asked for tracts. I've just asked for tables that have information on foreign-born in the city of Dallas and for the state of Texas.
Okay, and I'm asking, do you know what universe of tables, what they'd be organized by, what kind of information they would have? Or we don't know that?
Not yet.
Okay, so. I'm being patient now.
Yeah. Now, at this point, yeah.
How do you find foreign born?
Oh, okay. Want me to go back?
Yeah.
Sure. I'm going to eliminate foreign-born from my selections. Go to topics, people, origins, and there's foreign-born.
Some of these aren't pulling up foreign born. Oh, you have Texas, also Texas, Island, Texas, and state.
Oh, okay.
Because you're too narrow, it won't bring. So this is like way too many, obviously.
Do you see it?
Yeah. That's what you're saying, it's just not enough.
Everyone with me?
I'm not against you.
Glad to hear it. And then I click on foreign-born, and we're there.
Well, you're 709 tables.
709 tables. Now, one thing you can do here, you'll notice that right now we've got 25 tables visible. right here. You see this? And you notice that little drop-down arrow there? Click on it. And change it to 75. A lot more convenient, don't you agree?
I agree.
Glad to hear it, Judge. Where did they come from? Basic question, right? Where did they come from?
2012.
One way we can find out is we could just sort through this area and looking, but one problem with that is that the smaller countries, the margin of error, which talked about a couple of minutes ago when Cindy asked, is going to be sky high for some of these countries, for some of the smaller countries. I mean, we know for Dallas, because Diane already mentioned it, that most of the immigrants, or the plurality of immigrants, are from Mexico. So the margin of error for Mexican immigrants is going to be pretty small. But what's the margin of error going to be for immigrants from Croatia? I'm betting that the margin of error for Croatian immigrants might be larger than the number of immigrants. Not too useful. There's a way around that. Here's the way around it. Briefly, you take from the American Community Survey, instead of using 1 year worth of data, use 3 years worth of data. So instead of, say, the 2012 ACS, you take the 2011 3-year ACS. And you narrow down the margin of error tremendously. Here's how we're going to do that. Go back to topics. And close people. Go to data set. And you see here where it says 2011 ACS 3-year estimates. Click on that. And then close it. And then we're going to scroll on this.
When you say it changes the margin of error, does that actually show up in your search? Will it actually show up as, how like those tables will say plus or minus?
Yep.
It actually calculates that for you, and that's
Yep.
and that is an accurate reflection of the margin of error.
Yes. Isn't it great?
I'm shocked to hear this.
The census does it for you.
Because it is such a small.
And here we are, table B05012, nativity in the United States. Click on that. Nativity in the United States, universe, total population, 2009, 2011, American Community Survey, 3-year estimates. Texas and Dallas City, Texas. Oh wait, this is just native and foreign born. Well, it's not giving you by country, it's just telling you nativity.
It's these places, you want place of birth by nativity.
Right.
B05002.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got pulled up the wrong table. This is one I was thinking of that we could apply for every, I'm sorry, I was thinking of a different table, but this is a good one. One advantage of this one is we could apply this one to every single county in Texas. We could apply this one to every single tract in Dallas. In fact, let's try that too. But look at this, what we've got.
Does everybody have it?
You see, we've got in Texas and in Dallas the foreign-born population and the native population side by side. Now I want to try something. I want want to show you something that we can do with this.
So should people go back?
Hmm?
Should people go back and follow your steps, or?
Yeah,
Okay,
we're going to go back to geographies. And Dallas again.
Bless you.
Let's see how far down it is.
Want the metro area?
Actually, we're going to have to get rid of this one. Get rid of the 3-year estimates. All census, drop from your selection 3-year estimates, and then click on all census tracts
Where?
in the geography results.
Everybody have that?
No.
Okay, in order to get that, you're going to have to drop from your selections 3-year ACS.
And then search for what under geography? And then you click on geography, and what comes next?
Click on geography, add Dallas City, Texas, and then, let me go backwards. Put in the search bar Dallas, Texas, and then one of the first things you'll see down here if you can type confidently, which I seem to be having problems doing today. Come on. FactFinder is, pardon me?
think the connection's,
Hmm?
I think the connection's slow.
Yeah, I think it is. And I'm not getting what I'm looking for.
What do you?
I'm trying, I had it a few minutes ago. I was trying to get all census tracts, and I had it a minute ago, and now I can't get it back.
So why does that happen?
If you click census tract under, if you had it in Dallas,
Right,
and you click census tract, I only had 2, but then it gives me all census tracts as the top choice.
right, and I had that a moment ago too.
Yeah, now you have.
Oh, this is great.
For some reason you have 2,000 options, I only have 2.
Right, I know.
Okay.
I have
Do you
24.
have what?
Yeah, 26.
Oh, but that's because I had 2 other cities
Yeah.
to choose.
This is what I get for doing a live demo.
Croatians and.
Yeah, we
see, but see, like.
Okay. Folks, I regret to say that what I thought I was going to do is not working.
So what are you looking for? All census tracts?
All
Yeah,
census
city
tracts,
taxes?
and they were here a few minutes
Yeah,
ago,
I-
and have now disappeared.
So this is part of why people call it the devil.
Yeah.
Satan spawn, yes.
Well,
This is why they call it Satan spawn.
I have no idea what.
Did you try clicking on that 2,734, that's that census tract with the series,
Right.
Well, they're illegal ones.
and that's not it?
Yes, but you see what it should be showing is all census tracts within Dallas City, Texas.
Maybe
And it is
refresh.
not.
So, and then there are like tons of tracks, right?
Right.
Like 4,297.
Could it be that the actual name of the actual area isn't quite right?
Yeah, okay, folks, I'm not going to try to play with this any longer since it's refusing to play back with me. Let's try something else. Let's try this instead.
Did we get through the?
Where you want us to go?
Tell us what you're doing.
I'm going to try going to something else entirely. Because what I want to demonstrate is mapping.
But we should.
Assuming this thing is going to cooperate. David, I really feel your pain.
Well, that's not the computer, right? That's not cooperating.
Okay. All right. All right, we now have all states within the United States. And,
You closed everything, we're starting over now?
yes, I'm going back, I'm giving up on Dallas. Sorry, Diane, I was not able to do what I wanted to do.
So we clear all the selections and the filters.
Right. And what I've done in order to get there, and I will show you exactly how I got there. I'll clear all selections. I'll go to geographies, and this time I'll just go to select a geographic type, state, and I'll pick the first one, all states within the United States.
Did you put state over there?
So you choose, first you choose state under geographic type.
Right.
And then all states within the United States.
Yes. And then topics.
Can we go back?
Okay, you want me to go back and do that again?
Okay,
Sure.
under geographies, we clicked.
Start one more time from clear all selections, please.
Certainly. Select geographies on the list tab, which is this first one. Select a geographic type, which is this second button. See that drop down? State. All states within the United States. And that now is in our selections.
We have.
And now, do you remember how to select foreign born?
Yes, people.
Yeah.
People.
Origins.
Origins. Foreign born. Okay. And
Yeah.
this time it worked. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go down to that same table we had before, which is B05012, Nativity in the United States. And,
Scroll down.
Go back.
yeah, come on.
Page 2.
Okay. Okay. Now you notice up here, this create a map button.
Oh, wow. Maybe we need to go back to that.
You all see this create a map button?
Yeah.
Gonna click on that. And then I'm going to go down to, and I'm going to click on foreign born. and it's going to ask me, okay, boss, do you really want me to create a map based on foreign born by state?
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, yeah, show me a map.
You click on it in the table.
And now the squirrels in Suitland, Maryland are getting very busy.
Can you explain again how you got to the, do you really want me to create a map?
Yes.
Where do you click on it in the table?
What happened was I had a table up that had native and foreign born by state. I first clicked on create a map, which is the link at the top of the page. And this is all explained in the handout. Then I went to one cell for one state that had the foreign born population. I clicked on that. Then it asked, okay, are you sure? This is what you want, foreign born by state. And as you see, as I said, the squirrels are very busy. This takes a while. This is not fast. You should not depend on this to get a map for you in 5 seconds or 10 seconds or, gee, should I be dancing or singing a song or telling jokes?
I prefer the dance.
But there's one really, really cool thing about this when it finally is done. And the really cool thing about this is this will export a shapefile. How many of you know what a shapefile is? 1, 2. 2 of you know what a shapefile is. How many of you work at a news organization that produces maps for print or for the web? Most of you. When you get back, ask the people who produce maps. Come on. Well, that's not much. Look at California and New York and Florida and Texas. And you notice the scale here. That green represents exactly one state, California. Then you've got Texas and New York and Illinois and Florida. You can change this scale. The color and data classes can be changed. The boundaries can be changed. You can put in map markers. You can change all of this. But the best part is you can export this map. I asked a few minutes ago how many of you know what a shapefile is. Only 2 of you knew. I guarantee you, when you go back and you ask the people who are in charge of print maps or web maps, if they know what a shapefile is, they will know. Shapefile is standard for geographic information systems. You'll be able to load other kinds of data on a shapefile. You can get a shapefile for a census tract, or a county, or a city, or a state, or the whole country from FactFinder with data from the Census Bureau. The charge, nothing.
Can you embed these as well?
Can you change this?
You can export it.
How do you change it to percentage?
I have not figured out how to do that.
You have to start with a whole different data.
But I mean, it's free, and you can at least start with the shapefiles with Census Geography.
This is, California's the biggest state, so, But, I mean, the thing that I find overwhelming about this whole system, which is amazing, I mean, the data available is just incredible. It's just that there's so much of it, it's just that, like, when you do your search, you get, sometimes hundreds of different data, and you knew which one you were going for, but let's say we were just saying, well, would be guys to see this as percentage, that's probably one of those other data files, and to know which one to go to.
It's kind of like an avalanche.
Yeah.
And you're halfway down the hill and you can't outrun an avalanche.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It is overwhelming. But, I mean, it's free. It's worth spending some time on.
Yeah, and you don't have to use all of them. I guess that's one.
Oh, no.
You can just choose the ones you understand.
And I will say that the times I've successfully used this, I will confess that the PR people at the Census Bureau will walk you through this and help you do what you need to do.
The PIOs at the census are great. The analysts who they will put you in touch with are better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tremendous.
The they'll like walk you through like a 17-step process of clicking on this, that, and the other, and at the end of the day, you have exactly the chart you want.
Well, they'll do it themselves sometimes, they're very helpful.
Yeah. But again, you can export this as a shapefile, you can hand it to your graphic artist, they will know what to do with it even if you don't.
A quick question, so this just shows you sheer numbers, not percentage.
Right.
So it's kind of in a way meaningless because California and Texas are the most populous states.
True, but remember, embedded behind this is the exact geographic coordinates of census geography. And we're talking here about states, but we could be talking about census tracts.
But you can't click down through the map, like, you can't roll over and learn more, you've gotta go, the map is just kind of a quick picture to say, hey, there's a lot of foreign-born in these states that happen to be high-population states.
But you could take
True,
the
but
statistics.
think about it this way. This is part of a geographic information system. You could layer this map on top of other layers that your news organization owns. You're going to work for the Mercury News in a week or two.
Yes.
I guarantee you that somebody at the Merc has geographic information system maps of school districts, transportation networks, and so on already. The Santa Clara County assessors maps, other things like that they can layer on top of census maps. And as I said, this is free.
And in terms of the question about, like, that this doesn't show percentages, there are other ones that you, for instance, the census tracts are all the same size, right, roughly?
They vary a lot, especially in rural areas.
Okay, but there's other ones you could
But
do.
they're the same size in terms of geography, or in terms of like, that every census
I was
tract has
wrong on that.
1,100 people, or, no?
They vary a fair amount. In urban areas, they tend to be between about 4,000 and 6,000. In rural areas, geographically, they vary a huge amount.
When population percent.
But there's no percent like filter that you can go back and, like, we go back to where we were adding the filters, there's like no way to just go back and, I understand that like, this is one map, but like if you were to go back to that part where we were adding all the filters, you couldn't go back and just add a percentage filter?
No, you can't do it that way.
Okay.
But again, as I said, we've gotten one thing pretty easily.
Where's the export function?
Let's see. How do we export it? Print. How do we export it? Canvas day, I think. Is it here? Title.
Download.
Yeah.
Down where?
No, it's next to print on the top.
Yeah.
If you scroll up a little bit.
Scroll up a bit.
Yeah, up, yeah.
A little bit more. There you go.
Download.
Oh, download, yes.
Sorry.
Yes. Microsoft Excel, JPEG, single file, CSV, shapefile. There it is.
Similar.
So I just want to say that in our next session, Claudia will show us some tricks of how to make maps with free, openly available software. So we'll move from this to more mapping.
So, as far as using this mapping tool, it's helpful, but the main thrust of what you were trying to show us is where we can get this data and we can import it if we want to do the kinds of, like, percentages, to see what percentages. So,
There are better tools than FactFinder for calculating percentages.
Okay. I mean, so you can put, in other words, you can put that into an Excel spreadsheet and then just formulate, yeah, okay. Is that what you do typically?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I let Bill Gates do my math for me.
Okay, right.
Is there any method to, does the census have anything that tallies up undocumented immigrants? Or any way
The
to...
census does not ask legal status. I mean, apart from asking, are you a citizen or a non-citizen? It does not ask, are you here legally or not?
Because we were looking at the numbers for Maricopa County where we know it's heavily Mexican population and it says only 15% are foreign born. And we think because of the undocumented population,
It's gotta be a lot higher.
gotta be a lot higher than just 15% foreign born in Maricopa County. So that number is really low for our experience in the field.
See, that's where this is survey data.
Let's say you wanted to look at like all counties in the
They
United
got rid of them all before they
States.
did the census.
One at a time, please.
Let's say you wanted to look like all counties in the United States, or 2,300 counties or something like that. And you
More like 3,500.
Okay, and you wanted to see, you know, rank them by
Yeah, this is
That's the
the
PR
word.
dilemma.
You know, you can get I've just been playing around here and I was able to get a chart that has each county alphabetically, but can you like as an Excel file, can you sort them? So you're like ranking them by a certain item, like by the most, you know, county with the greatest number of foreign born to the least number.
The census regularly puts together ranking tables of counties.
But can you do that just in this tool? That was just an example.
I don't know, I've never tried that.
But you could easily export it to
You can
Excel.
export it into an Excel file and do it yourself.
Yeah, I've not tried that. I think you probably could. What you would probably do is just go in through one of the county tools. Yeah, it's almost certainly possible. I've just not tried it.
One of the challenges I found, which I'm assuming a lot of people who are in big cities find, are, for instance, okay, it's easy if I'm working in Alhambra, which is its own city.
Right.
But what if I want South LA and I want a
Oh.
specific neighborhood in South LA, or how do I do that? And I haven't learned how to do the census tract.
Okay, the question here, and to put it in context, LA is a city of neighborhoods. And there are neighborhoods in Los Angeles that are the size of medium-sized cities elsewhere, but they are part of this very large, very discombobulated city. And as far as the Census Bureau is concerned, they're just tracts or assemblages of tracts. The problem is when you try to get at them through the Census Bureau, that's all they are. They're tracts. And finding them means you've got to get out a map and you've got to go looking for them.
So you would, if you wanted to do it, you would patch together the different tracts and search by the tract.
That's how I would do it.
Okay, and then what does it map the tracts here? Like, what's the easiest way to find out which tract is in which area?
I have never found an easy way to do it except with the GIS.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't have an easy answer to your problem.
Okay. Let's hope that.
I wish I did.
Are there track maps at the recorder's office? Or maybe through the websites of the county recorder?
Well, we're not, okay.
Are those real estate tracts different from the census tract?
Oh, okay. Great question over here. Judge Marks was asking about tract maps, specifically real estate tract maps, and how to get this clarified. Tract maps she's talking about are, assessor's tracts, subdivision tracts, totally different animal from census tracts. If they happen to line up, it is a pure coincidence. Totally different coincidence. So,
Sorry, that was a legal question, because to
Yeah.
be tract, I just assumed until we got to this point that it meant the
yeah,
property.
for whatever
So that's
reason,
great.
they adopted the
A
legal
different
term
methodology.
and totally coincidental. So, please ignore the coincidence.
So is there a visual, what's the easiest way to get a visual of a tract? So let's say I want to get certain parts. I know in my head the neighborhoods in Miami I want to cover, but I want to be able to look at it to see which tract corresponds.
You would have to go to the.
Well, number one, if you've got a GIS program, you can map them.
What is GIS?
Geographic Information System. And Claudia will be talking about that in the next session. There are a number of good GIS programs. She'll be talking in detail about them. Mapping them this way, as you've seen, is not exactly the fastest way to do it.
No, not so much that I want to see a map of it, but in order to ensure that that the area that I'm getting the statistics from is the physical area that I want to include for my story.
So each municipality would have census tracts that you could get from their own census offices, right?
Right. Typically, every state has a state data center. Also, every county is typically responsible for determining the boundaries for census tracts within that county.
So they would have a map that shows census tract 747 is, shows me the.
Usually, a city will know exactly where the tract boundaries are within that city. So that would be another good place. If the graphics department at your news organization is at all well organized in the last census, they will know where the boundaries are. I know that's a big gift, especially with the cutbacks that virtually every news organization has in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Is that in places like his hometown?
But it's something you should ask about. All right, let me try something a little risky.
So what are we doing? We go back?
Pardon me? We're going to go back.
If we want to pull up the thing that we started out with, the thing you pulled up at Cambridge that had all that wealth of data, which thing do you pick in the search to get that table?
Oh, that? Oh, that was easy.
Like if you're searching on it for a particular county, say.
Hmm?
Like if you're searching for a particular county or a particular city.
Community
In
facts.
the, you have to
Community
select the
facts.
topic.
Facts in the header.
Mm-hmm.
Pick the county.
Wait, but I want to make a table that also has the state and the nation next to it, so that's why I was using the advanced search.
Right. Let's see.
I just wonder under topics, which of it, what it would be.
Let's put Massachusetts in here. Actually, this is an example that I put in the handout, so let's put it in here. It's fun.
So let's just make sure everybody knows where we are.
Okay. In the Geography tab, one of the tabs is at Address.
And we're in advanced search.
Are we clearing the other one out?
Yeah, you don't have to, well, actually, yeah, you do. And the way you clear everything out is in your selections, and I've already done it, you'll see a little tab that says Clear All Selections. Go ahead and hit that. It works. And then hit Geographies, and then hit the Address tab. And as you may have noticed, we're at a charming house. The address here is 1 Francis Avenue in Cambridge. And let's see if I can actually get this to work. What's the zip code?
02138.
02138. And we get a whole bunch of geographies. I've counted, there are 28 geographies
Well,
for this address.
That's amazing.
What do you mean by
what does that mean?
geographies?
Yes.
Does that
Okay, what I mean by geographies is the Census Bureau has collected data for 28 distinct areas, all of which contain
Yeah.
this house.
Yeah.
So 28 universes of data were created where this house is included.
Exactly.
Including 2 different congressional districts before and after redistricting.
I'll make sure I'm with you.
But the smaller the geographical location, the less reliable the data, correct?
Well, no.
If you do
The-
it with reader thing?
Well, actually, yes and no. And I'll come back to that in a second. You've got like the Boston, Worcester, is it Worcester?
Worcester.
Worcester. I'm not going to attempt
And it's
that.
Basque.
For some odd reason, there are, oh, I see, two different Congresses. District 8 or District 5.
Somebody changed that.
Okay, there are two legislative districts. There's a ward. A PUMA. A PUMA is for microdata, which we'll get into. A ZICTA is for zip codes. A zip code, Massachusetts, remainder of Massachusetts, Massachusetts, or an elementary district. Cambridge City, economic place as opposed to a place.
So you can get school districts as a, you can sort by school districts?
Yeah.
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 So you can, will it tell you born in school districts?
Massachusetts, Middlesex County, Cambridge City, Middlesex County, Massachusetts as a county subdivision. Block 1003, Block Group 1, Census Tract 3536, or Census Tract 3536, or Block Group 1, or Cambridge City, Massachusetts, the metro area. I mean, some of this gets kind of mind-boggling, even if you're a census geek like me. But you see, all of this data is available. Dozens, well, 28 different ways. And that's, you know, you can just find it just by typing in an address. Want to find out what's available on this address?
Could we look at the school district? I mean, that's
Yeah.
something you never really get from schools.
Let's see, school district, elementary or secondary?
Elementary in Cambridge.
You know, secondary, because they're more likely to be older, because most kids are born here, so maybe.
Did you hit remainder rather than
Doesn't
school
include
district?
foreign board.
Everywhere. Majority. Well, I mean, we'll see, but.
Okay, school district,
Census data should-
okay, so we selected that,
We did elementary.
and now what topic do you want?
I guess foreign, so
Foreign
like
people.
foreign born.
People, origin.
It doesn't do foreign. Well, it does on this one.
It does.
Only 91 different charts.
So maybe it is.
Can you do also Hispanic or Latino? Can you add to that?
Yeah, of course we can.
Can you add Hispanic or Latino?
Right there in that origin.
And
Let's see how many tables we've got left. We've got 4 tables.
So those tables will have foreign-born and Hispanic or Latino in them.
Right.
So this
So it
means,
might not have an age breakdown though in the school, it's just the geographic area of the school district, it wouldn't necessarily have it by age.
Right, yeah, so they
Yeah.
may have adults in that school.
So let's check this one, sex by age, by nativity and citizenship status, Hispanic or Latino. Oh, or better yet, how about this one? Nativity by language, spoken at home, by ability to speak English to the population 5 years and over, Hispanic or
Well, it's just
Latino.
that Cambridge is way more diverse than Latino, like as you saw in the other one, like that more Asians did not speak English.
You pick this one, which table do you want?
So, just school districts, like just something that would show the age breakdown.
Sex by
Well, I don't think we got that.
What if you take
So,
it?
just a quick question, in selections, does that mean it's either or both your selections?
Vote. The way
So you gotta
The
be
way
careful what you
FactFinder
put in
works-
there.
Yeah. FactFinder is a Boolean search engine. What that means, George Boole, an English mathematician, logician, he constructed Boolean logic, which operates on the principle that you select something and something and something else. And each time you add a condition, you're narrowing down what you get.
So can we take out Hispanic or Latino?
You know, that is a really useful.
Now watch what happens when I take out Hispanic or Latino. Watch what happens to the search results. 91 tables now.
But now why does it have US? I thought we were only doing Cambridge in a certain school district. What happened?
Well, I think we are only doing Cambridge, but
Why would it say selected social characteristics in the US?
because it's not going to say selected characteristics of Cambridge. The name of
Oh,
the
I
table is,
Gotcha, okay,
the name of the table doesn't change. It's the geography that changes.
okay.
Okay. If you see something you like, call out.
Well, I mean, I actually do think it's really, I was gonna ask you this before anyway, but if there's a way to get an age breakdown of the foreign born, like under 18, over 18.
Well, you know what we could do?
You could do the voting.
There is, I mean, I know there is, I just don't know how to do it. I'm on the new FactFinder.
There was an age thing in the people.
So in the decennial census, they break it down
Oh,
in that way.
Age, it's really, I couldn't do it myself, I used to be able to do it in an old one.
Yeah, under people, age.
age groups? You want children?
Well, so like,
Or would you
like
prefer-
to show like foreign born, for example, like, it's,
Would you like children, or would you like something more specific?
yeah, I mean, something that shows the breakdown of the foreign born, like, you know, what number are adults, what number are children, for
Okay.
example.
Okay, so now we've got something, age and nativity of own children under 18 years. How's that?
Okay, yes.
Did you all see how I got that?
No.
Do you want me to go back and show you again?
What's the number of the table? B05009.
So just to make sure we're still in Cambridge, right? We're still in
Yeah.
foreign born, and now we're selecting on page 5.
Okay, here's what I did to get there. I went back to topics. Maria asked me if we could somehow narrow it down to age. And so I went back to topics, clicked on topics, went back to people, and then I went on to age and sex and clicked on age to add age to our selections. And then the very first topic selected now is age and nativity of own children under 18 and families and subfamilies by number and nativity of parents. And for some reason, it's no longer Cambridge. This is clearly Massachusetts.
So I
It
noticed
says
too,
remainder, yeah.
it's not,
Is that because it just can't drill down enough?
Apparently, yeah. It wouldn't let me. But you see, we are getting data on the foreign-born. One native and one foreign-born parent. Child is native, child is foreign-born. And by age groups.
What is the number of that table?
This is just your, this is not all of Massachusetts.
This is, yeah, this is Massachusetts-wide, I'm sorry. This is table B05009.
But is,
Now, wouldn't the school districts have better information? Like, wouldn't they have, if you went to them directly, wouldn't they have better statistics than this?
They might. Some would. Some would not.
Wouldn't they be required, like, you know, these different titles that they have to?
Again, some would and some would not.
so I'm still trying to find this, what I've been trying to find this whole time, which is a table that has like a county, the state it's in, and the nation for like a whole mess of data. Like the problem with picking these tables is they're each so specialized that if I just want to look at like a big look at one area, one place.
Okay, then let me show you something.
I did the advanced search and I put the county, the state, and the United States as my geographic places, but I wasn't sure what to put in the topics to get everything.
All right. Her question was, I would like to compare the county, the state, and the United States together.
On like everything that's up.
All right. I think I can do that.
Can I build on that?
Sure.
I wonder if you could add one map of like regional, like southeast, northeast. Could you make that type of comparison also? obviously you can do state by state, but could you do like these 3 or 4 states in the southeast, these 3 or 4 states? Silence. I guess maybe not.
I don't think it breaks it down.
You can customize your map. You can add any kind of information at the same time and have this visual because it's your data. So as much information you want, you just prepare your data and you connect it with the map. Any kind. I mean, county by county, city by city. Have 2 states. It's basically what you want on your map, and you can customize your map. And it's really. Sometimes you don't have to depend on what the census have. You can actually customize your own idea.
Okay, meeting up with your challenge, I've just added to my filters, United States, Florida, and Miami-Dade County, Florida.
Perfect, that's exactly what I want, something like that.
And now, I'm just going to take,
I want to show you how.
What did you just go back, let's go back. Let's go back, just go back.
I'm just going to take
Yeah.
2012 population, or 2012 ACS, and
What are you doing, 2012?
ACS 1-year estimates. And I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to show you something new. You can actually specify a table if, like me, you are a real extreme census geek.
And you know.
I'm going to select B05012, nativity in the United States.
B05012.
And I've got that. Now that was easy. I'm going to pick one that's a little harder.
But
I think it's that one? No.
yeah, I want, right.
You want a lot of data.
I want like a community snapshot, like what we got on the very first thing we looked at.
So look it up, community snapshot,
Oh, put that in the search.
I mean, no, put it in Google.
I'm going to put it DPO2. Data profile, selected social characteristics in the United States. You want a lot of data? You got a lot of data.
What's that, DPO2?
Yeah. There are 4 data profiles available on every place in the United States. And here they are for the United States, for Florida, and for Miami-Dade. You asked, you got.
Bravo.
Now, wait a second. As they say in infomercials, wait, there's more. You see this button here?
Yeah.
That says download? You want me to press it?
No. Yes. Do it.
Notice here. Now there are several options here. How many of you know what a CSV is? Only a few of you. CSV stands for comma separated variable. What that means is that each field is separated by a comma. Why should you care?
Because otherwise
I'll show you why you should care. You can modify this table.
I can't handle it, you.
Among other things, you can transpose rows and columns. There may be circumstances, and with me there often are, where you transpose the rows and columns. If you transpose the rows and columns and then export to Excel, you end up having to use if functions to get the margin of errors to line up correctly, because otherwise they get put into lines directly below the estimates. How many of you are good with if functions in Excel? Come on! Am I the only one? Okay. So if you transpose rows and columns, and you're not raising your hand, I don't see anyone else raising your hand. That is why, let's see. That is why you might want to use a CSV, because a CSV will take care of the little problem that you otherwise would have to handle with a if functions, which get very messy. So instead, since I have not transposed rows and columns, I'm just going to export to Microsoft Excel. Click download, open with Excel. And here it is.
Voila, as you said in your handout.
Yes.
Whoa.
Now, one thing to be aware of,
It's done like that.
all of this stuff here, all of these values,
Oh, really?
they are actually come across as text. Another thing to be aware of, Census has a bad habit of merging columns. So you're going to have to unmerge columns. You all know how to unmerge columns in Excel?
What do you mean by it merges the columns? Like in a particular similar data or?
Well, you notice how when I click on the subject column, columns A and B are highlighted? That's because this column spans columns A and B.
So how do you
You are so above my pay grade.
So what you end up having to do is cleaning up the data when you get it from the Census Bureau. But trust me, it's worth it. I mean, you just got a bunch of data for the US and Florida and Miami-Dade, and how much did you pay for it again? Well, I mean, your taxes, but other than that.
But you pay for that whether you get the data or not.
Exactly, exactly.
We hope. We hope you're paying your taxes.
Well, yeah, otherwise someone may come knocking on your door and you'll be facing a judge who's a lot less friendly than Judge Marks over here.
But who's an Article 1 judge?
But is an Article 1 judge, that's right. And she's not going to let you forget that either.
Exactly, if I repeated that enough.
And what about changing to text? You can just select all of these columns and change from text to new.
Yeah, I'll show you how to do some of this. First, I'll show you how to unmerge. I've highlighted that column. Go to alignment. And notice now how all of this stuff is suddenly very narrow. Let's get from column A.
So what is the DP2 chart?
It's a data profile. And there is DPO1, which is population demographics, DPO2, which is social profile, DPO3, which is economic profile, and DPO4, which is housing profile. You gotta be a real census geek to know this stuff.
So if you really wanted all the data that there was on a community, you'd want to look at all 4 of those tables.
Oh yeah, big time.
So,
Could you get all 4 of those on a census tract level? Or does it depend on the year?
Not for a tract, you can get them for any place. The way,
I couldn't look smaller into Miami-Dade County and like see the individual tracts and how, I don't know, foreign born, or just look at all that information.
well, you can certainly get foreign born down to the tract level. The thing with tracts is you can only get detailed survey data down for 5-year ACS. That's really important. Going back to the question I was asking at the beginning of this session, track level data, you need 5-year data because of the margin of error.
And even with a small county, might you need a 5-year data?
How small county?
13,000.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's the only thing it came off was, the one I was looking up was only 5 years.
Yeah,
That's all that came off.
yeah, it's, forget it. I mean, don't even bother trying 3-year data.
What's your threshold for margin of error, where, you know, if it's good enough, it's really good, or no way am I using this?
Okay, no way am I using this. I feel really uncomfortable when it's more than about 10 or 15% of the estimate. First, you've got to remember that these margins of error are calculated at a 90% confidence interval. And, you know, I have liked 95%, but 90% is what they calculate at. Remember that you're going out to an audience that tends to be very skeptical of journalists anyway. So, you know, if you just take, for example, let's go down to something fairly controversial.
What, you said you don't use a margin that's greater than it. What was the margin?
I tend to feel really uncomfortable with stuff that's like more than, say, 10 or 15%.
But that's within already a 90% confidence interval?
Yeah.
So that's already...
Well, I mean, 90% confidence interval means that the chances are 9 in 10 that the value is at the stated margin of error. Let's see, less than 9th grade. Now, at the national level, these are going to be huge. But let's go over and look at Miami. 189,000 plus or minus 7510. That's awfully good. I mean...
So would you take the 13, the high school graduate, 13%? Plus or minus 13% high school graduate?
I mean, Miami is a big enough city that most of these things are going to be pretty good. But you get down to a small city, name a small city in the Florida area. There's several people here from Florida.
Okeechobee.
Plant City.
No, Plant City.
I smell these.
Yeah.
Right? Come on, help Ryan out.
What's the one that was mentioned yesterday?
Canada Beach?
Plant City. No, those are actually...
I mean, you get down to a city that's, say, 25,000, and the margin of error, even for educational attainment, which is calculated for everybody 25 and over, you're going to be getting some where the margin of error is going to be really close to 10 or 15%. And at that point, I'm thinking, ugh.
What you like is 5%.
That's where I feel comfortable.
But if you were doing, looking at, say you're an editor and you're doing survey, political polling, what do you want? You don't want 5%.
Right, I mean, you know, if I'm telling my editor, this is how the election's going to turn out, it better be way closer than that.
Yes, and that would be 3%?
Yeah, but you see, in this case, we're not calling an election. We're just saying, this is how the community looks. There's one more thing I want to show you, because it's a really neat trick that I discovered while I was preparing for this conference. And it kind of shows you how you can find out where people are coming from and more about a particular community. And let's get back to FactFinder.
So we're going back to all selections cleared, or?
Yeah.
Can you just, really quick, when you said that the numbers all come in as text, but you can't manipulate them as text, so...
What you do is you highlight the column and then you change it from text to number, which is easy.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do here is, and I am going to just change this to...
So we're going back to selections cleared, geographies.
I'm going to change this to Orange County, California, and you'll see why in a second. Down here, race and ethnic groups. We spent no time on race and ethnic groups. And this used to be really boring, but they've added something to it. Or maybe it was just something I didn't realize that they had. Notice down here, country of birth. Ooh, someone over here says. I did not realize that they had this. But isn't this neat?
Oh, click on it, please.
I know.
Where is Iran in Orange County? I bet you've got a pretty good representation.
Oh, but what we've really got
What?
in Orange County?
Wait, what did you add to the, what are you gonna?
What I did was on topics, I went down to, I went down to race and ethnic groups, that third box, and then I clicked on country of birth, and I'm going to scroll down here.
You can't just pick them all?
No, Anne knows where I'm going.
You can.
Anne knows exactly where I'm going. And it's on the next page.
It's racing origins. Breath with racing ethnic groups.
Was it on the third page?
Should be on the last page, right?
On page 3, Vietnam. Okay, so my selections, Orange County, California, country of birth, Vietnam.
You have to select the city.
And close. And now I've got exactly 11 tables selected, including selected population profile, 1, 3-year estimates. Basically, this is just iterations on 1 and 3-year estimates going back a few years. Why would I select a 3-year estimate as opposed to a 1-year estimate?
Less margin for error.
Exactly, less margin for error. So I'm going to go
Or
with
greater validity, if you want to say it in a positive form.
6 of one, half dozen of the other. But yeah, you're exactly right. I'm going to go for the 3-year estimate. So this table here.
What number?
It's the S0201, but it's the 3-year estimate, 2009-2011.
Can you show me where the number is on that screen? I haven't seen.
I'll go back.
Okay, so it's on that first screen.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention this little eye over here. If you're just trying to find out what a table looks like without even opening it, you can look at this, and this will show you what a table looks like, so you don't have to wait to open it. And you can just window shop.
We're trying to do it as wide as possible.
And now, we have got selected population profile, Orange County, California, Vietnam. $131,722. Breakdown of population, male and female, age breakdown, median age, relationship, household, marital status, school enrollment, educational attainment, fertility, women who had a birth in the past 12 months, 2,057 women born in Vietnam who live in Orange County had a birth in the last 12 months.
What's the margin of error on that?
Plus or minus 413, not great. Not at all good, actually, but not shabby either.
Really, you would use that?
I'm not sure I would.
But can't you use it as a story idea that you can go to other sets of data?
You certainly can use it for a story idea.
And hospitals have that, because I actually helped
Department and school systems.
Responsibility for grandchildren under 18 years, living with grandchildren, 8%, plus or minus 0.7%. You can compare this with other immigrant groups. How's it compare with Mexican immigrants?
Ron, one question, I know, we were talking a little bit about the difference between first generation immigrants and children of immigrants, and right now, the census doesn't ask, is one of your parents, were one of your parents native or foreign born, but I had heard that the census was gonna add that question back in, and it used to have it. Have you heard anything about if and when it is actually gonna add that
I
question
would
in?
not bet on them adding any questions in the current fiscal environment.
Even the American Community Survey?
You know, at the rate the House is going,
Nothing, okay. So is there any way in the census right now that you can get as close to that question as possible, because that does inform so much of some of the economics of immigration?
I haven't figured out a way to get there. I agree, it would be a wonderful question. And yeah, I think like 20 years ago, there was a way you could
And I heard they were going to add it back in, but what's right?
Right now, I think just keeping ACS alive and mandatory is the best we can hope for.
But Ron, wasn't that on the spreadsheet that you told us before?
Oh, the data reflected.
I remember we were trying to find something that said was one of your parents an immigrant or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that was, I mean, that's a question where, that's not saying second generation. I mean, that's asking, are you an immigrant? It's not asking, it's different from the question that she's asking.
I don't remember that, but.
It was looking at the
I had never
numbers.
seen it before, so I was very excited looking at it, the one when we were looking around the school system trying to figure out the breakdown, but
Yeah.
maybe it's a different question.
But there's a few other things here too. Disability, residence 1 year ago. How much mobility is there among Vietnamese immigrants to Orange County?
Couldn't you buy head of household?
Looking at these data is to me like, almost like, I have no idea what to make of any of these numbers. I mean, without some sort of comparison to something else.
Well, it's really easy. You download this, you download the same figures for the other major immigrant group in Orange County, California, which is Mexicans. You put them side by side.
Well, you could just do that all in one table, right?
Many years.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just by adding another,
When he says side by side, he means
on the
right there.
same table, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, for example, if you live in a community where there are two major immigrant groups, and Orange County is one of those areas, you use this trick, and you've got a table, or you've got two tables, and you can make really powerful comparisons of the two major immigrant groups, and you can say, here's how they differ, and here's how they're similar. Like, naturalization rates. Entered U.S., before 1990, 45% of Vietnamese, well, there's a pretty good reason for that. Language spoken at home, speak English less than very well, 70%. I think the percentage among Mexican-born is quite a bit higher.
It's also.
Yeah, Diane.
Are these the Mexicans we're looking at?
No, these are the Vietnamese.
I'm really impressed that so many came after 1990. Why? Is it secondary migration?
Yeah, it's also the sponsorships.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of fiancé visas.
Wow.
Yeah. People marry, going back and marrying.
And look how many of the Vietnamese immigrants ended up in management, business, science, and arts occupations. That's a pretty important statistic. And again, down here, management, business, male.
To read the margin of error on these, is the So the initial, the 2,533, is it plus or minus 2 in addition to 2,533?
It's 35.8 plus or minus 2%. So it could be anywhere between 33.6 and 38%.
So but the 2,533 over it is only referring to civilians employed?
Right.
Okay.
So another way of looking at it is the Census Bureau has 90% confidence that the percentage of Vietnamese immigrants in Orange County employed in management, business, science, and arts occupations is 35.8%, plus or minus 2%.
Does the Bureau of Labor Statistics keep similar statistics, and do you ever use them?
The Bureau of Labor Statistics does its current population survey in cooperation with the Census Bureau. That is a monthly survey of 60,000 people across the country, supplemented by the March supplement, which is a much larger survey of, I think, about 300,000. But that's nationwide.
What about the payroll data?
Well, there's also the payroll data, which is a separate survey, and which often comes up with very different results than the current population survey.
But that's more, because that's an actual, they're required to count every person.
Right.
So it's
But you've got to remember that, you know, the ACS is like 3 to 3.5 million households, so it's a much broader, much deeper survey.
Broader in terms of questions asked.
Both in terms of questions asked and in number of respondents.
But the payroll numbers, wouldn't that be a more precise number, because it's every single person who's on any kind of payroll?
Well, it's also a survey, though.
Oh, it's not, so it's just, okay.
It does not go to every employer in America.
Oh, I see.
The only thing that goes to every employer in America is the economic census, and that's every 5 years.
And that wouldn't have any immigration-related information, right?
No, it's not designed to capture what we're talking about here.
Yes.
Before I get the hook pulled on me, I guess I should ask if there's any more questions. I think we've asked, oh wait, there's one more thing I'm going to show you here. Median household income for Vietnamese immigrants, people who arrived here, many of them as refugees. Not bad.
But the households might be larger too, right, with more people?
Yeah, they might. But again, see how easy it was to get information on an immigrant group in one county out of 3,000 in America. Now granted, I cheated. I knew there was a very large community of immigrants in this county. But you could find this out pretty easily.
Can I ask a question just sort of more from 30,000 feet? So there's such a range of skill in the room and facility with the census tract data as there is with the track data. And I'm wondering if those of you who have become very adept at this could just talk for just a little bit about, so, you know, here I am, I'm an immigration reporter. I don't have time to get to the level, nor do I want to get to the level of a Census Bureau analyst, right? The person I'm going to call on the phone who's going to help me go, you know, 17 steps into some. But the difference between a story that is only anecdotal, or to use Diane's term, cinematic, and the difference between that story and the story that is, you know, fortified by data is everything. So as you talk to journalists who want to have sufficient facility, but maybe don't have the time or the inclination to become, you know, a teacher of this, can you just talk about sort of regular daily or weekly practices, or how you would counsel people to get to the point where this just becomes as, you know, as easy as, you know, pulling up a source's phone number, or just as integrated a part of their reporting as some of the more, you know, the pre-digital tools of journalism?
My suggestion would be to spend a couple of hours, just a couple of hours, playing with FactFinder and seeing how much you can get from FactFinder about immigrants in your city or county in a couple of hours. Just challenge yourself. See what you can find out and see if you can surprise yourself. I would be shocked if FactFinder cannot, in 2 hours, tell you something about immigrants in your community that you did not know. That's all. You've got a tip sheet. It's way easier to use FactFinder now than it was in 2011 when I first started trying to coax reporters into using it. And there is just so much data out there now about immigrants that you can probably find something in 15 minutes. You probably won't need 2 hours to find something that will surprise you and maybe delight your readers or infuriate your readers. And it doesn't matter if you delight them or infuriate them, you'll probably do both. That help?
Does it, for those of you who are relatively new to this or somewhere in the novice to intermediate category?
And when in doubt, Google dataset, census, Cuban Americans, Miami, and fill in the blank for your city, and you'll probably be directed to something that's useful there on the census site.
It seems like the most important thing is just to get a sense of what the scope of the stuff that's out there, and then seriously, these PIOs at the Census Bureau are really good. They will walk you through it. They will help you find what you want. So but you have to know it's there to be found.
I would just add that, we have really tight deadlines on the web and whatnot, and you just need to give them time because they can't just have work in an hour. The more time you give them, the more they can give you.
But we need to realize that without this kind of training, we cannot create accountability. Because unfortunately, the narrative on immigration is great, it's beautiful, it's personal, it's human story. But we need to understand the numbers in order to create accountability, to generate change. And we need we need to jump. There's no option. Really, once that you get the numbers, we can enrich your stories and kind of ask for change.
I'm going to leave you with one other thing. For the next shutdown, notice I didn't say if there's another shutdown. And by the way, this is on the website. These are places, by the way, 4 days after the last shutdown began, I was giving a talk on census reporting for health reporters with Steve Doig from Arizona State University, whom some of you know. We thought we'd have to give it with sock puppets. I was able to do quite a bit of work using censusreporter.org, which is funded through the Knight Foundation. They have done just wonderful work recreating a lot of stuff that was otherwise unavailable because FactFinder was down. Your state data center has got a lot of great stuff. The Missouri State Data Center is absolutely bloody marvelous. IPMs, I've not had time to show you about microdata. That may be just a little too crazy for some of you, but you might want to try it someday.
Do you have to register for that, or is it for free?
It's for free. You do have to register, but it is for free. And then if you actually know the address of a specific table that the census has, and it's on Google, and it's shut down because the government has had a hissy fit, it may well be that the wonderful folks at the Wayback Machine have already cataloged it and cached it, and you can always go there. Again, when, not if.
Yeah, and I think that underscores, and just so one observation I would make is, a lot of the stories we talked about or looked at are stories that people have made a considerable time investment in, perhaps, the series, the Sunday takeout, whatever it is. And so often, the breaking news story that, the press conference or whatever, that we can anticipate are, the coverage becomes these sort of fact-free zones where we've got people just making claims or statements and we don't have as ballast, immediately at our fingertips the facts that will put the lie to that, create accountability, as you say. And your point that, when we're filing to the web, everything is the demands are so fast. So having this as a tool and having, spending a couple of hours and stockpiling information in anticipation of the story that you know is going to happen next really makes the breaking news so much more valuable.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you all.